Hello, hello. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and welcome to the virtual town hall of the Asia Pacific GNI Innovation Challenge 2022. In the next hour or so, you will have the opportunity to learn more about the Innovation Challenge and to hear more from former recipients, as well as ask us live questions. Our presenters for today include myself, Philip Shen. I'm the Program Manager for the APAC Innovation Challenge. My colleague, Ludovic Blechet, who is the Head of Innovation for the Google News Initiative. We are very pleased to have two former recipients with us in Damian Thompson, COO at The Conversation International, and Harshita Verma, Outreach and Communications Lead at Khabar Lahariya, Shambal Media. Kindly drop your questions in the YouTube chat window for us to discuss at the end. And we'll make sure to moderate and keep it as engaging as possible. So thank you all, and over to you, Ludo.
Thank you so much, Philippe, and thanks everyone for having me. It's not only a pleasure, it's also an honor to be with you today. I'm Ludovic. I'm the Head of Innovation for the Google News Initiative. I'm really a news person. I'm a former journalist, former CDO, and my role is to really stimulate the news ecosystem through innovation at Google. Before digging more into this program, let me step back a little bit and tell you how much we are aware of how technology has profoundly and permanently changed the way people consume news. Things are difficult, complicated today. They come with challenges, but they are also extremely interesting, and there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the future of news. Change is constant. There is no single model anymore. There is no silver bullet. And it's all about trying to find new recipes, trying to find ways to adapt to the way consumers are changing their behavior and to the shift of the business models. Journalism is more important than ever, and there are many reasons to be optimistic about future of news. Our role here is really to be a partner with news publishers to surface high quality news information, relevant and useful results, to be a business partner as well with websites, publishers, and really take our responsibility here. We play a role in the news industry. It is alongside news publishers, and we partner with your digital transformation. One of the way we do that is through one program I'm running called the Innovation Challenges. If you can go to next slide, you will see that it's a global program that comes with regional execution. And you will discover that this time it even comes with some kind of local chapters. This is the third time we'll do that in Asia Pacific. In the previous round, in the previous call for project, we received 470 applications, selected in the end 41 projects in 15 different countries. And I really recommend you to go on the Google News Initiative website. You will see all the selected project in previous round in Asia Pacific, of course, but also in other regions. And this is definitely inspiring. And I guess you will be as interested as I am to discover the case studies, the video, and the report on the impact of those projects. So today, and this is where we are here, I'm very, very, very excited to announce and promote the launch of the third Innovation Challenge in Asia Pacific. It will be our effort to give everyone the opportunity to inject new ideas and innovation in the news ecosystem. So now let's kind of think about it. When I say that my role is really to stimulate innovation, what does it mean? It means empower the news organization to come with new ideas, new recipes, and try to tackle all the challenges they're facing through innovative projects that can come in any form. Having spent more than 15 years in newsroom, I know how much the day-to-day is challenging, how much you are focused on your daily operation, but also how much it's important to kind of step back, break the silos, brainstorm with team, and come with a vision, come with new ideas. And even if you don't execute it in the end, just stepping back and building that will bring a lot of value. This is how we thought about the innovation challenge, and you will discover a kind of simplified application process that my colleague Philippe will describe. But this exercise is, we think, in itself extremely interesting to just use it as a forcing function to step back from the day-to-day operation and come with new and fresh ideas. One of the questions I'm always asked is, how do we look at innovation? So we don't want to define innovation. And we will ask you all, if you participate to this program, to define why do you think this specific project is innovative for you. Innovation is not a state-of-the-art thing. It depends of your starting point, of the local media landscape. So explain for you and for the ecosystem why a project is innovative. But my colleague Philippe will tell you everything about how to explain that. So one last thing from me: who is eligible to apply? Who can apply to this program? It's really open to everyone. And that's all the idea when we speak about the news ecosystem. It's not a buzzword here. Everyone is part of it and bring his piece to make it more vibrant and robust and sustainable. So it's open to organizations of every size that aim to produce innovative, original journalism, and which has a specific project on innovation towards creating a more sustainable and diverse ecosystem. Applicants must be based and registered in the region. You will find on our website the list of eligible countries, the terms and conditions of the challenge, but it's really about your project, the ecosystem. So anyone, you are a new startup, a daily paper with digital operation, online only outlet, a broadcaster, anyone can apply to and come with idea. Now I'm gonna give the floor to my colleague Philippe, and he will walk you through how the funding works and tell you everything about how to apply. Can't wait to see your project, and I'm back to answer your question. So think about the question you want to ask. Philippe, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ludo. That was very inspiring. So let me explain to you, those who've tuned in and all those of you who will be rewatching this recording, how the project funding works. So Google will fund up to a maximum of 250,000 US dollars for selected projects, but we strongly encourage consistency regarding the funding request. The amount requested should reflect the scope of the project, and all approaches are welcomed, as we want to be inclusive, from small prototypes to test new things to more transformative and at-scale implementations. So out of the total innovation project budget, Google will actually finance up to 70%, while the remaining at least 30% could be resource allocation provided by the applicant itself. The self-funded portion, so the up to 30%, may include operational costs. Eligible expenses include personal costs, engineering costs, and the purchasing or licensing of any equipment, tools, hardware, software, and other assets or materials needed for the project. All this information, you will be able to find it back on the website of this particular innovation challenge. So, and just to add, marketing expenses should not exceed 20% of the total amount of Google funding requested. And editorial expenses are not part of the eligible costs and will not be covered. and funding may not be spent on general and overhead costs. So while we are aware these are a lot of like details, you will be able, as I said earlier, be able to find all this information and details on the website, and we'll be more than happy to take any questions later on in the presentation. So for the first time, I just wanted to emphasize this is very exciting that since the installment of the first APAC Innovation Challenge back in 2019, applications can now be submitted in any of the 7 local languages across the region. You will see for yourself, in addition to English. So we welcome and any applications in any of these 7 local languages, should you prefer, or of course in English. All right. So what are we looking for when reviewing the project submissions? I think specific is the word here, as we are not looking at the general digital roadmap for your company. Really take this opportunity, as Ludo mentioned earlier, to do something that you might not have done without this funding or at this size or speed. So don't treat this as an extension of your business as usual operations, but really see this as a unique opportunity to take on a big bold project and an experiment. Okay, so in terms of the selection criteria then, so project proposals will be evaluated against 5 main criteria. I will briefly go through these one by one. So the first one, impact on the news industry. So preferred projects should demonstrate the potential for a significant positive impact for the wider news industry. For example, collaborative approaches, open source projects, or just ideas that inspire others and foster innovative thinking for quality journalism are welcome. Secondly, innovation. Preferred projects will take new approaches and be transformative for the applicant and for the users. It should not be business as usual, as mentioned earlier. Third, feasibility. Preferred projects should demonstrate their potential through clear indicators and expected metrics. They should set out key risk and mitigation steps. So selected projects will require a detailed plan of attack and will need to be delivered within 12 months after the funding is received. Fourth, inspiration. Preferred projects will show willingness to share knowledge and to contribute to the improvement of the news ecosystem overall. This could include activities such as attending events, planning blog posts, public speaking, or contributing to case studies to share with the wider ecosystem. And selected recipients will be required to produce a public report with lessons learned from the project. So last but not least, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So preferred projects will be able to demonstrate their self-defined commitment to DEI, whether that is within their audience, organization, or content. Okay, lots of information to digest. More than happy to take questions at the end. So while each application is unique, here's a list of topics which you might consider building an innovation project around, or you're already working on one. So a few topics here, see these as examples. So definitely not let these be too prescriptive to the scope of the innovation project you have in mind and want to submit a proposal of. Okay, moving on. So also just wanted to call out that which projects would not qualify for the Innovation Challenge funding. So these are, for example, projects relating to news coverage only, or projects merely translating news content into other languages, because that will be too operational and business as usual. Upgrades of legacy publishing systems also do not qualify for this challenge. Projects that relate to simply collating or listing data, for example, the publication of job listings or stock exchange data, or the republication of newswire articles do not qualify. Also, projects on training or education only, which is too narrow in scope, do not qualify. And also, lastly, and not limited to, projects which do not impact a news organization. So we really want to see innovation and impact on the other hand. Okay, now in terms of the selection process then. So all applications will be reviewed by a project team, which is composed of experienced Google staff and external industry experts across the region. The project team reviews all applications and interviews shortlisted candidates to arrive at a recommended selection of projects for the final approvers, who are a panel of senior Google staff. And these final approvers will vote on the recommended list of projects and make the final decision before announcing this year's APAC GNI Innovation Challenge recipients. All right, now a bit more technical. So let me just quickly walk you through the application submission flow on the website of the Innovation Challenge in the next few slides. So as you can see from the screenshot, when you go into the slide and you click on Apply now, you will be led to this screen to complete your application form. You will see there's different fields to insert your input. And part of this actually includes a checklist in any of the 7 local languages as well, which you'll find here within the box. And after this is done, you will see that as part of the application, the completion of a slide deck, which is also available in any of these 7 local languages in addition to English, is a requirement to complete your application. The slide deck will have, as you will see, Google Slides, and it's a template for your project proposal. And you will see questions around what is the goal of the project, what is your plan, what is the budget required for the project, and what are the KPIs, or what are the success metrics you want to track and monitor. So once all of this is complete, you can go ahead and click on Submit. There's also an option to save applications if you want to, update over time. In terms of timeline, so we are very excited to have announced this Innovation Challenge. So we are early in the application window. So applications can be submitted up until 23rd of August. However, we recommend you submit your applications rather early, rather than wait until the very last day, if that's a point of advice that we can give. And after that, we will have the selection process, including shortlisting and interviewing of the shortlisted candidates, before making the announcement of the recipients by the end of this year. So finally sharing a few tips and tricks for your application submissions. So feel free to email us with any questions you may have, by the way, after the presentation and the town hall. But I think it will be a great opportunity as well to ask any live questions you may have. Happy to answer. I'm very excited, as I would like to pass the mic to Damien Thompson from the Conversation International, who is actually a former Innovation Challenge funding recipient in 2020. And he will be able to share their innovation projects and hear from the experience. So over to you, Damien. Thank you.
Hi, Philip. Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Damien. I'm the COO for The Conversation, based in Melbourne. For those not familiar with The Conversation, I'll just get the slides moving along there. The next one. Next one, please. Yeah, that's it. For those not familiar with The Conversation, we publish news by experts. Our editors help academics translate their research into explanatory journalism for the public. We're a not-for-profit, and our content is free for everyone to read and for media to republish. We first launched in Australia, and today we're part of a global network of sister sites with newsrooms in this region, as well as Africa, Europe, and North America. In 2020, the theme of the Innovation Challenge was all about reader engagement. So we put in a proposal. We wanted to focus on a key problem for The Conversation and for many other media outlets, which is reader comments. Our pitch focused on real names policy and tools to help make reader comments more inclusive and constructive. Most commenters on The Conversation were abiding by our community standards, but we saw that certain topics were prone to misinformation and spin, and sometimes abusive behaviour. This could undermine trust in our content and even discourage academics from writing for us. We wanted to make sure that our comment section was inclusive and it was in a constructive place, and we wanted to make moderation easier for our editors. So our approach focused on 3 areas: updating our community standards, working on our app, and active community engagement and moderation. We put together a proposal that describes some key steps in our approach and identified 2 project milestones, each with a really specific KPI that would unlock funding throughout the project. So the first one, a few months into the project, was that new commenters could be approved or rejected. And by the end of the project, a 50% reduction of flagged comments. The first steps in the project involved our editor and head of audience leading a process to review community management and update our community standards at the conversation. The updated standards focus on our real names policy and being civil. Then our engineering team got to work to support the implementation of the real names policy, updating code to registration pages to allow for better identification of real people, introducing reCAPTCHA to sign-up pages, introducing social logins for user accounts, and setting up pre-moderation for first-time commenters. And another key focus was to give our editors better tools for moderation, which can be very time-consuming. Our engineering and design teams built a range of features and tools in our Comments app. This slide shows the old interface compared with the new one. The new one is much easier and quicker to find in the CMS, and we've added a range of filters so that editors can find and sort comments by time, by editor, on whether a comment has been moderated or not. We created an audit trail. There's also a range of shortcuts to lock commenters or view comments in the context of a broader thread. This is just really helpful stuff for our very busy editors. The new interface provided a fresh look for readers and authors. We're seeing results. We've ticked off those KPIs. We've allowed we can now approve first-time comments. We've reduced the number of problematic comments. We're seeing much more constructive comments and more authors engaging in the comment stream, and that's a big win for us. So the key word I think today is innovation, and reader engagement, I guess, is really closely aligned with our business strategy to grow loyalty and turn loyal readers into donors. But this project wasn't really business as usual for us. The project allowed us to focus on a key problem, and it gave us time and space to consult editors, authors, and commenters, to look at what others were doing with reader comments, and to think about inclusion and diversity as well. Most importantly, it allowed us to bring our editorial, engineering, and design teams together to work on solutions. So just finally, some tips from me, I guess, perhaps some no-brainers. Be really clear on the criteria. I think a successful proposal will show that you have clearly identified a problem or opportunity, probably something that you can measure, and that you've come up with a really new solution. Be prepared to spend time on your application. Writing the proposal, preparing the slide deck can take time. Don't wait till the last minute, as Philip said. And allow for some experimentation and iteration in your approach as well. And finally, I think good project management really pays off. Having clear scope and milestones, tracking your project just can help you get things done and report on it, because there's some reporting to do as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for sharing, Damien. That was great just to hear how you went from scratch in designing the project and to the actualization of the project and implementation of the project, resulting in real business impact. So if I may ask a quick question, since it's called the Innovation Challenge, and we've covered the innovation part, what did you find particularly challenging about this project?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for us, we have sort of I think a lot of news organizations have a long-standing challenge with reader comments. And we had some, I guess, we tried a number of ways to address building, community engagement on our site. We'd had several versions of our reader comments, but we never really found the time where we could bring, our editors, our designers together to actually think about creating some technical solutions and building some tools that would actually support the implementation of our real names policy. And that for me is where, where as I said in the end, that's where the true innovation happen is just the time and space to bring those different people together and work on it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. Actually, I'm going to pass the mic to another of our former recipients of the Innovation Challenge, namely Harshita Verma. Harshita is Outreach and Communications Lead at Kabalaharia Chambal Media. And yeah, we'd love to hear about your innovation project and experience as well, Harshita. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. This is Harshita. And yeah, let's start with like what we exactly do. So Kabalaharia was started in 2002 as a regional language Bundeli print newspaper, where we cover stories from the villages of northern Indian hinterland. We cover stories from the geographies that you will not find on internet. We have all women team of Dalit and marginalized communities, and we cover news from the villages, such as like villages not having housing, drainage, or sanitization facilities that few of the mainstream media think is not newsworthy. Next slide. So like KL shift to digital only in 2006. That put us onto the national digital mediascape dominated by English language digital media platform, catering us to an urban audiences. That time we cover news in Hindi and Bundeli language only. In order to bring the secondary audience, we package our Hindi content into English and we started content syndication. We got a good response from that. We got regular subscribers to our newsletters, supporters to our crowdfunders, and consumers of our news for research, advocacy, and training. Here enters GNI. As we now have a loyal audience on board and their keenness to pay a small fee for more features long form content from KL, we kickstarted our process of ideation and brainstorming towards drafting, concretizing, and implementing plans to build a product that we can offer to this audience. But for all of that, we need like some sort of support to do sessions with him, with Indian and overseas audience members on like what content to offer to these audience, what will be the pricing for this product, the systems, the tech, and all of that. With the support of GNI, we are able to complete the research and development part. And like throughout the process, they are so supportive, and the process throughout the process they are so like supportive, and their trust on us and our product is what we appreciated and want to tell you all as well. Um, so here we launched our product Soundfairy and 4G in 2019, like where we offer long form in-depth articles focused on rural youth, and we package this content for our urban audiences. Next slide. So this is the product journey so far. We launched our product called Soundfairy and 4G in 2019. That is mainly focused on the urban audiences. Over the period of time, we did some surveys to know more about our audience and their needs. We did experiments with the content, its format, and did some online campaigns as well. Bulk subscription was the one we are keen on doing, and the first plan was sold to the Godrej Lab. But like due to some technical challenges at that time, we are not able to onboard more universities for the bulk subscriptions. And in 2021 September, we revamped our product as we want to reach more diverse audiences. Like our major like audiences from the rural areas and from the Hindi belt. So like we want to reach to those audiences as well. So the first thing we did was to rename the product that is now called as KL Hatke. That means, and the KL Hatke means like something different. This name works both for the urban and rural audiences. Uh, Along with this, we like did major tech changes to the website to this particular product. We did changes to the interface, the smooth onboarding of the subscribers, and most importantly, the bulk subscribers. We added more multimedia content and format to it, and like this product KL Hatke, we like want to make it more interactive with the audience. Yeah, and from in the next slide you can see the logo of KL Hatke, and yeah, thank you. Over to you, Philip.
Thank you very much, Harshita, for sharing your story. This is truly inspirational, and also just great to hear the real impact this project has had on the rural communities in India. So thanks very much again for sharing. So if we could move on to the next slide. Thank you. So learn more and apply through this link and through the website of the APAC Innovation Challenge. And also for questions, feel free to email us at apacgnichallenge@google.com. Just kindly point out that the questions should be in English, as we won't be able to get back in all of the local languages. But applications can definitely be submitted in any of the 7 local languages across the region, in addition to English. So thank you for that. So now it's time to very excitingly look at the live questions. So we want to keep it engaging as possible and interactive. So we'll actually bring up all the speakers on the floor, and yeah, here they are. Hi, Ludo, Harshita, and Damien. So we'll have a look at the questions. But before doing so, maybe if I could just open it up with a broader question to any of the speakers here is, since this is the 3rd time that we'll be launching the Innovation Challenge for APAC, what do you foresee as a real hot topic in the region compared to maybe based on your experience in the previous 2 editions? Would you like to start, Ludo?
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, it's always hard to tell for one reason. I'm always asked, hey, what was your favorite project or what will come? But that's the beauty with innovation. We don't really know what will come, right? What will come. And we are at a stage where it's all about idea, but what really matters is also execution. And you say that at some point, Harshita, as well, right? Well, actually, you both said it, right? And the impact rely on how it's executed. So there is the idea, but if you are able to explain how you're going to implement it, what will be the stages, how you're going to iterate, how you're going to test and learn along the way, because innovation is also about making changes along the way. So you have a vision, but you take different paths through your project in order to learn from the audience and everything. So one of the things we'd love to see is great idea that is coming with realistic approaches regarding execution and how you plan to learn along the way and to share with others in the ecosystem also along the way. Maybe love to have ideas also that are even more reader focused, right? So not just the problem you want to solve from a journalistic standpoint, but what are the problems the audiences are facing and how you can serve them in the best way. So that's the kind of thing we'd love to see. So I'm not telling you exactly what we will see because I don't want to predict and I'm bad at that, but we want to be surprised and have ready your explanation on where the users stand within your idea.
Thank you, Ludo. And as you said, yeah, we don't want to be too prescriptive about what we define or see as innovation, right? So we want to really be broad and open. Anything to add, Damien, Harshita, before we take a look at the live questions?
I mean, revenue is always an important consideration for newsrooms, and I think anything. I mean, I think in 2019 we put in an idea that was sort of loosely based around trying to build revenue, but I think that those pathways to build reader loyalty, and whether you've got a subscription model or a contribution model or an ad-based model, I think new ways to new tools to improve revenue are really important. And I think just in terms of that reader aspect too, going to places where you can really find new audiences and serve their needs, whether it's through tools for translation or new types of storytelling with different tools for social media, those sorts of things I think are really interesting.
Thank you for sharing. All right, so let's take a look at all the questions from the live audience. Those are flowing in. We will moderate the questions, so we'll have the questions on the screen here as well. So Ranel is asking, will costs of editorial personnel be covered? They will be integral to operations of the idea. Thank you for your question, Ranel. If I may kick it off, I think so. Eligible expenses could include personal costs, engineering costs, and the purchase of licensing of any equipment and so on. You can find more details on the website. But purely like editorial project would not be in scope. So it will be part of a broader innovation project. I'm not sure, Ludo, if you have any pointers here.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I think it's a very important point. So what is not covered is only the editorial production. So imagine you come with a project that has no tech component or no sustainable component and is just about producing a new great investigative stories. This is not covered. But if as part of your cost, you have editorial personnel that are involved in the creation of the project, in feeding the project, putting things together, they are part of really the project management and they are not just producing content, this is absolutely fine to have them part of the project. Also, please remember, you will give a total budget, and we are funding up to 70% of this budget. And the rest, the 30%, is resources allocation. On those 30%, you are totally allowed to put some journalist costs that will work on the project, and that will be based on your reporting, the time spent of those resources, and journalists can totally be part of those 30%. So in other words, totally fine to have journalists as part of the project, but we won't cover 100% editorial project because that's not the purpose here, even if some content production can be part of it. Does it clarify, Philippe?
Thank you, Ludo. Yeah. Let's move on to the next. So Avinash is asking if 20% cap is on marketing, then where the 80% of the funding will go? Does personnel costs include the cost of journalists hiring deployment? I think similarly to previous question. So this 20% will be of the 70% of the overall project budget that Google, up to 70% that Google or GNI will be covering. And where does the other 80%? So in my view, I think that would go towards the production or personnel costs. We have a series of like items such as like engineering costs, purchase, licensing, software, and all that. Any other assets or materials that's needed for this specific innovation project. The key here is still it should not be business as usual, BAU. It should really be something that's different from the daily operations.
Yeah, you create a new product, a new platform, a new offer. Of course, you will need engineering time. You might want to buy software. You might have a need of new devices to make it happen. And at the end of the day, there is also an allocation for the go-to-market strategy to raise awareness. That's why this part is limited to 20%. All the rest is to develop the project, put the right resources. And of course, hiring journalists can be part of it, but same. Not just for the content production, but for the sustainability of this project.
Great. Thank you, Ludo.
And it could be interesting to have also at some point our two recipients explaining a bit about how do they manage this budget part, how did they report on things, because it's pretty straightforward, and there is a platform where you report on the resource allocation and stuff. So we don't want to complicate your life. We want to make it simple and easy, because that's our innovation work. Do you want to say a word on that? How did you report?
I think, Damien, you in your presentation, you had a, I think, very clear slide on the way how you kind of track and monitor progress. If you could, share your thoughts there.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, I guess, built into the application process is the need to identify some really clear KPIs, and so you've got the milestones, in your project plan. The KPIs are attached to those milestones. That's where you're unlocking funding, and so they become really the centerpiece of your reporting. The reporting process, I mean, I think every month you can check in. There's a kind of a dashboard where you can record various expenses and activities, and keep on top of that stuff, and actually sort of doing that every month. So that's a really good tip, because otherwise it becomes a lot of work. But the reporting process is good.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. So Nawa Ahmed, could we submit training program as part of the project proposal? So I'm reading this with the emphasis on as a part of, because as we said earlier, education or training program on its own would not qualify for the innovation challenge. So if it's part of a bigger, like a broader innovation project proposal, that's something that we could consider. Is that fair, Ludo?
It's absolutely fair, Philippe. I would say that shouldn't be core of the project. If a tiny part of the project is to make training, let's say within the newsroom, to train them with new tool, you develop an AI, artificial intelligence / machine learning solution, you are training people to use it. That could be a big part, but that cannot be core for this.
Great. Moving on. So Amber is asking, can a professional skills development organization make a pitch, or does it have to collaborate with a news publishing platform? So essentially, Amber, the audience really of the innovation challenge will be publishing company, right? So news publishers. So with that, actually, curious to hear your thoughts on this, Ludo, since we also do encourage collaboration on this front.
Yeah, assuming I got it right, my answer would be, as you say, the first intent is news. So at the end of the day, it should serve the purpose of helping the news ecosystem and news publishers to try new things and build a path for better sustainability or diversification of revenue and stuff. In terms of collaboration, what I would always recommend is collaboration, super welcome. Collaborate as much as possible. It has by default an impact on the ecosystem because many players are working together. It's always better, and a strong recommendation, to have the news player, a publishing platform or a publisher, as the lead applicant. And then the others are collaborators. When we say collaboration, we mean a really true collaboration. It cannot be just to consider a contractor or subcontractor or someone you are working with to create, let's say, to develop your tools to be a collaborator. It has to be a really sharing everything about the project, including, for example, the code or the ownership of the project, right? So collaboration means really put all the resources together and share the resources. So depending on your type of collaboration, you might take the call, go as you want, but most of the time, news publisher should be the lead applicant.
Yeah, thank you.
And just explain, as always, explain us why you put it that way.
Exactly. On that front, there's many ways, through the application form, through the slide deck, which we already have a template for in English and 7 local languages. So we'll always review the application and look at it holistically. So as an integral innovation project. All right. Next one. Bring it on. So Kanchan is asking, a 30% self-funding would mean 75K US dollars. Is it not too high an ask? Will it not be a major deterrent for the candidates, even if they have some good innovations on hand? All right. So I'm actually glad you bring this up, Kanchan. Thank you for your question. That's why we're actually saying the funding is up to. So it's a maximum of up to 250,000 US dollars for selected projects. But we also actually asked the applicants to, for consistency regarding the funding request. So the amount requested, which does not always have to be that, the maximum ceiling, should reflect the scope of the project, and all approaches are welcome. So really depending on the size, whether being a small startup, new startup, to a larger, news publisher. So really depending on the scale and the and the size of the organization, in proportion, bake that into your proposal. So it's really up to this amount rather than it is a fixed amount across all the projects.
If I can jump in quick, Philippe, one first thing, have in mind that the 30% is not money, right? It's resource allocation. So it's people, time of people that are working on the project, plus the expenses you are making to make the project happen. So actually the 30% of the overall budget, you reach it pretty easily because you need people to work on the projects. And that's really basic. The second one, the most impactful projects are not necessarily the big ones. We've seen a lot of prototype for 20K, 30K that are minimum valuable product, proof of concept that are been really successful. That was the approach, and then the publisher decided to scale it or not. So don't always shoot for the top. Be consistent in your proposal.
Exactly. And actually, if you go onto the website, there's a tab with selected projects where you can see the scope and the project of former recipients, including the Conversation International and Kabbalah Haria. These are just a few examples. So, and these are all public. Yeah. All right. Bring up the next question, please. Thank you. So Chachi is asking also to Harshita and Damien, is there any tips or strategy you could share to prepare the interview, assuming you're shortlisted after your project has been, exactly that. So over to you, Harshita.
Thank you, Shia. So like I said in my presentation, that GNI team was very supportive throughout the process. So first, there are two things, you have to be transparent to the GNI team, because we feel that their trust on us and their trust on the project we are developing. So transparency is the first thing, and second thing is you should be very sure on the project you are developing. So these two things I will suggest you if you got selected for this product. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Harshita. What about you, Damien? Thinking back.
I think the same. I think the team was really supportive. So trusting them and being transparent with your answers is really important. But just being across your brief, I think, is really good. Being well prepared. I think from memory, there were a few things I didn't know, and I was able to follow up afterwards with some answers where I needed more information. So be relaxed as well.
Yeah, just bring yourself to the interview. Great, thank you for sharing, and thanks for the question. Next one. So Supachok, hope I'm pronouncing correctly, asking, the proposed project needs to have an impact on the general users or affect the work of journalists. Which one will have a greater chance of being considered? Ludo, would you like to start
So
off?
first of all, yeah, happy to. So first, everything will be considered, right? So don't restrict yourself. And again, it's all about you explaining why does it have an impact. Pretty often, I'm having a time to kind of completely separate both, right? Something that has a huge impact on the general user, most of the time, it has an impact on how the journalists work, or at least how do they engage with the audience. So I would say in most of the cases, we want to see the connection between that both. My personal recommendation would be to start with the users or the readers, because this is where everything starts, and take it from there. But again, happy to be surprised. Don't limit yourself, but tell us anyway. If you work only on internal processes, let's say you streamline the internal processes, you completely change the workflow of the journalist, at the end of the day, you would also need to tell us why it will have a value for the readership and for the kind of journalism and the quality you are producing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And again, like maybe to Damien and Ashita, when you submitted your projects at the time, was there anything in particular you had in mind? Was it the audience, the reader, or the user, or was it more, were you thinking about the journalists, who really, are on a day-to-day operations?
Well, the theme was reader engagement, so we had to focus on readers. But I think in doing the sort of consultation to develop the project, we realized that there are a lot of tools that our journalists need to make comment moderation more time effective, and so we did. We focused on both, I guess, through the project.
Gotcha. What about you, Hashita?
Like our major audiences from the rural India, and they are the Hindi speaking audience. So like our main focus is to how we can bridge the gap between those rural Indian audience and the urban audience, the English speaking audience and the Hindi speaking audience. So how we can bridge the gap between these two audiences. So this is one of the yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you both. Next one, if they have some time. Can we ask your priorities for different countries, for example, Mongolia? And this is Nest Center NGO. Okay, thank you for the question. So we want to be as inclusive as possible in this innovation challenge, APAC Innovation Challenge, which is really regional wide. There's really no ranking when it comes to countries. So we just want to be very clear on that point. Anything to add, Ludo?
No, we look absolutely first at the project, but again, tell us, a project might be seen less innovative in some countries, in some region, or depending of the type of player you are, right? So try to really explain us why your project is innovative for you and represent an innovation from a media landscape standpoint, because what we want is to be very diverse in our selection and consider the starting point of everyone.
Thank you, Ludo. Let's move on to the next one. So, Kashan, again, thank you for your question. Will someone getting selected for the GNI Innovation Challenge be eligible to apply for GNI Advertising Lab also, whenever its window opens? So, assuming the GNI Advertising Lab is a program that we are running in India. So, for different programs and challenges, we have different criteria. You are welcome to apply to both. For sure, there's no restrictions when it comes to that. There might be different set of criteria though, so do check out the page of the different programs on the terms and conditions, as well as the eligibility criteria. All right. Okay, Chachi again. So, and if a project has been selected, will the winner receive any other support from Google aside from the funding? Ludo?
So look, the funding is not exclusive, right? So you can apply to many other Google programs. You can participate to any different GNI offer, right? So it's not exclusive. That's one. Will you receive specific support beyond the funding for this specific project? So first of all, the project is yours, right? 100% yours. You own the IP of the project, and it has nothing to do with Google product. So you can use Google product, feel free to, but you don't have to. So that's the first thing. Do we provide kind of technical engineering resources? The short answer is no, but what we try to do is to connect the dots when it's possible. You would like us to see if you can be in touch with someone. If we can help, we consider that, but by default, we don't provide any specific resource or support regarding the project on top of the funding, but always happy to discuss with you and see if we can help to connect you with someone in any way, but no commitment here.
Thank you, Ludo. Okay, I think we have time for one last question, and then we'll wrap up with final thoughts from the speakers. All right, Nest Center NGO is asking, is sub-granting allowed, say with 30% of the grant pooled from other donors? I'm not sure if I am fully understanding the question here, but I would think that the funding would be directed at the project that is being submitted. So there will be a direct relationship. But Ludo, maybe you have thoughts.
Well, the way I'm understanding the question, and I could be wrong absolutely, is what if I have other people that already accepted or I'm negotiating with that would also help and support and put money into this project? That's my understanding of the question. And the answer to that is, if you already secured funding, this is great. It shows that there is traction and interest. So just tell us, it's totally fine. We don't want to be exclusive in any way. We can come on top. But what we need is to have projects that are at a design stage. So they are not started, they are not up and running. They can be prototype already, but if you have other funding secured for this project, absolutely fine. It shows the interest of it.
Thank you so much for all the questions and all the speakers for your participation and answering these. So for any other questions, follow-up questions, feel free to email us. So at apacgnichallenge@google.com, in English, please. And we'll be able to get back. Or, of course, check out the FAQ sections on the website. Thank you very much to the speakers again. And to everyone who's tuned in to watch and will rewatch later on. We look forward to receiving your applications. So it's an exciting time. And thank you very much.